Naluri community series. And today's theme is, setting the right foundations for the year. With me is a dear friend, Azman Sulaiman.
Hi everyone. Good
He
morning.
is a fellow executive coach, founder of iCoach KL, a former corporate leader, board member. And Azman, normally on this theme of health and well-being,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to invite doctors and dietitians,
Mm-hmm.
psychologists, counselors, fitness coaches, to talk about personal lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
habit formation. Today, let's take a different tack.
Okay.
Let's combine our business leadership experiences and perspectives to
Mm-hmm.
see if we can draw parallels between the concepts and driving change of the boardroom and whether you can also apply it to your own personal change transformation.
Okay. Wow, that sounds like a big topic, Azran, but please fire away. I mean, it is that time of the year when, you know, everyone, wants to start the year on a good note. Whatever lessons from the year before they want to improve upon. And I guess we as coaches,
Yeah.
our role is to help them continue that momentum, but also maybe putting things into perspective.
Sure.
How you can make your ideas and ambitions realizable, right?
Well, I was
Okay.
hoping to invite you for a bit of a debate
Oh, okay.
because normally, just like individuals at the
Mm.
start of the year,
Mm.
big companies also use this as a way to kick off the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Annual planning and budgeting sessions,
Mhm.
big annual kind of rituals and
Mhm.
kickoffs, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure you, in your experience, also kind of take that approach.
Mhm.
I'd love for you to kind of, in a way, wear that lens a little bit.
Okay.
And I try to come from the view of startup entrepreneurs who
Okay.
need to kind of move more in a more agile way, kind of finesse, and this idea of kind of setting annual plans, targets, just like our own New Year resolutions, may not really apply well, right?
Okay.
So I'm not necessarily saying that one is always better than the other,
All
but I
right.
think it'll be beneficial for people
Okay.
to contrast
Mhm.
the two approaches, right? So
Mm.
maybe let's start with you talking about what do you see as parallels
Mhm.
when companies think about change,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
What do you need to do, and how could we draw lessons for individuals trying to embark on their own personal change journey?
Wow. So Azran, I mean, that's a huge topic to begin with. You know, I mean, all companies, they go through this uh, process of reflecting on the
Mhm.
year that was, try to strategize for the year ahead, sometimes even strategize for longer periods. But from my experience, as well as what I see of companies today that I advise, sometimes it's not as all satisfying in terms of the outcome.
Mm.
And I know you yourself are a strong advocate about annual plans, whether they really work or not.
Yes.
But I'm gonna begin by
Yeah.
saying that you need to have a plan.
Okay.
You can't proceed in life in general without a plan.
Mm.
But maybe it's all about how do you actually make that plan workable.
Mm.
For example, and this one I have to agree with you. Sometimes, you set a plan at the very beginning of the year, and you somehow or other it's sort of like tucked away in the drawer somewhere. You got a big picture about what you need to do, but there's no real process of evaluating whether it works. And then by the time you know, it's already end of the year,
Mm.
and therefore, we didn't achieve this, because of this, or because of that, which really is just a bit too late.
Yeah.
That one I have to agree with you.
And in a way, when you think about a business or company plan,
Mhm.
it's similar to a lot of personal plans.
Okay.
People start the year saying, these are my goals and targets, right? I want to lose weight. I want to run a marathon. I want to be able to save for down payment on my house.
Mm.
And maybe they might even come up with action plans.
Okay.
How am I going to do that?
Okay.
But clearly something is either not right or missing because we all know the famous statistics that 80% of New Year resolutions pretty much collapse before the end of January,
Mhm.
right? So why do you think that happens? And in a way, for many companies as well,
Mm.
you start the year thinking these are my plans, my targets, my initiatives,
Mm.
but we all know, within weeks the world changes, right? Like you
Yeah.
have no idea how social political, with new leadership changes, new technology changes, new regulatory changes.
Mm.
So where do plans head, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I fall within that category of 80%,
Yeah.
admittedly. But again, I
Okay.
mean, I still start with a plan.
Okay.
Okay. But what I also have realized is that sometimes you need to maybe set shorter term goals.
Okay.
So let's just say,
Mm.
I mean, I have tried this and it's sort of like worked. Let's just say I plan to lose 10 kilos of weight this year.
Mm.
Or, Ramadan is approaching.
Yeah.
So some other people always tie Ramadan with, I want to lose weight.
Yes.
But maybe the better approach is to actually lose weight
Mhm.
with concerted effort, yeah?
Mm.
Not just by starving yourself, but with concerted, but maybe in smaller intervals.
Mm.
So that you feel the satisfaction. I think the most important thing is you must feel the satisfaction of achievement.
Okay.
And that will spur you to do more. For example, I'm also, I don't read a lot,
Mhm.
but I do like to deepen my knowledge in faith and of course in Islam.
Mm.
So, but I'm not too ambitious to want to know everything.
Mm.
I just pick up little bits along the way and not just try to learn them, but also try to retain them. But when I feel that I'm able to retain something, it helps me feel confident that I can do more. So it's really getting the confidence that you're doing it the right way rather than just having a plan and hoping it's going to succeed.
Sure. Now, people have talked about, okay, you can have a big plan, but start small, bite size.
Mhm.
That's not new. So
Okay.
many kind of lifestyle influencers out there are talking about kicking off the year by starting small. But the reality, though, right, most people hear that message, see countless of TikTok or Instagram reels about starting small, bite size,
Mhm.
but it still does not translate into action, right? So simply either having a big plan with big actions or small steps, I think that's a missing element.
Mhm.
So let me kind of
Okay.
frame my counter view, right? As you know, I tend to be an advocate of people over plan,
All
right?
right.
Even in business, meaning you can have a plan if you want to, but even more important that I think many companies neglect is who is going to run
Mm.
this plan,
Mm.
right? And do they have the humility to kind of say, are we on track or not? The curiosity to look at different approaches, the resilience to bounce back from success, and do we actually rigorously enough to assess that? And the main reason for that, I think, at the start of the core, as humans, we are first and foremost emotional creatures.
Okay.
Right? We're driven more by emotion rather than logic. So, for example, right, the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex that processes logical thought, is a tiny, 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 like one billionth the size of the limbic system, or not necessarily physical size, but the degree of activity, right? Our gut instinct, our subconscious, our Naluri,
Oh, no, no, no.
right?
Okay.
That becomes more powerful. So simply trying to think about using logic to kind of propel you forward doesn't work if you don't address the subconscious, the emotions.
Okay.
Right? Now, there are basically four core types, four basic emotions.
All right.
There's happiness and sadness,
Mhm.
fear and anger. And I would say most other emotions are derivatives of these, right?
Okay.
Some combinations of them.
Mhm.
Now, of course, happiness is the positive one, but I suspect most of us are held back by one of the three emotions: fear,
Mhm.
sadness, and anger.
Anger.
Now, sadness, in a way, is an emotion where you're grieving a loss of something, something in the past. So it tends to be past tense.
Okay.
You're looking backwards. Okay. Fear is about I don't have control of something that may come up in the future. Anxiety, right? So it's a future tense. But anger,
Mhm.
anger is about a perceived injustice. I've been wronged, right? Or
Mhm.
someone that I care about has been
Mm.
wronged,
Mm.
and it's in the present tense,
Okay.
right? To me, one of the ways of taking that first steps,
Mm.
you see, whether it's your example of I want to start learning something new, right? I want to start running and getting off the
Mm.
couch to run.
Mm.
There are the small steps that you take,
Mhm.
but usually what holds people back is even that first step to take that first
Mhm.
action step, right?
Mhm.
And that first step is overcoming the emotions that hold us back,
Okay.
right? So uh, my central premise for today is
Mhm.
number one, to be aware of
Mm.
whatever reason you feel uh, holds you back from
Mhm.
achieving your personal goals.
Mhm.
Number one, where's the mind? Is it sadness of the past?
Mhm.
Is it fear of the future? Or is it anger of the present? And if I really need, again, my kind of controversial kind of new idea for today is of the three, anger is what will make me move from my current state today to
Mm.
be able to take the first step. Anger at or dissatisfaction with my status quo.
Okay. I mean, I hear you,
Mm,
and of course, there's a lot of scientific references that
mm,
you're using. But I just want to hook onto that now,
right.
right?
Okay.
Again, anger is one of the emotions, but for me personally, and I also encourage my
Mm,
coachees, for example, is to find that point of happiness.
okay.
Because and when I
Mm,
say happiness, it's not just to be happy for the sake of
mm,
being happy,
mm,
but for example,
mm,
you need to be calm and have peace in your heart.
mm.
And finding that calm and peacefulness in your heart is a lot of times derived from happiness.
Okay.
So let's just say you're doing something
Yeah.
and it's awfully painful to you.
Mm-hmm.
You do know that it's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort
Mm,
to get there, and I hope I get there.
mm,
But how about finding points of happiness along the way?
mm,
Points of happiness come from
mm.
satisfaction, seeing the outcome, the positive outcomes, no matter how small they are. But
Okay.
I would spur, and I tell companies
Mm,
too.
mm,
For example, imagine the
mm,
emotions of setting a plan that you know is not going to you're not going to achieve it,
mm,
versus setting a plan
mm,
that okay, it's still going to be challenging,
mhm,
but I've got a high degree of confidence of achieving it, and then feeling what's it going to be
mm.
like when I achieve it. The feeling of satisfaction and happiness.
And this is great, but this is why we're gonna have to agree to disagree. So I think happiness works when you have momentum,
Yeah.
right? So for example, for me, I enjoy my exercise, my running, my cycling, my swimming. It's what propels me going forward, right?
Mhm.
I get tremendous kind of positive endorphins,
Mm.
dopamine that kind of
Mm.
move me forward, right?
Mm.
So I think happiness plays a crucial part in sustaining that momentum.
Yes.
The trick though, Azman, is that first step.
Okay.
Okay. So my contention with happiness is it tends to be you're happy with the status quo. And what I would love to kind of get, just for the sake of debate and to challenge people's thoughts, right,
Mhm.
is anger at the status quo
Okay.
as the right emotion to take that first step.
Mm.
That anger needs to be channeled appropriately,
Mm. Mm.
and then it in a way shifts as momentum builds. You
Mm.
then start to find the joy in
Mm.
motion.
Okay.
Okay, but anger in this, and now here's the thing about anger.
Mhm.
So as I said, anger as an emotion is about a perceived sense of injustice, right? Something
Mhm.
has been wrong. I'll
Mhm.
give you an example. Let's say you're driving a car, right?
Okay.
And suddenly the car in front of you brakes hard, and you slammed, you slammed into the car, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna be pretty upset, right?
Yes.
Now, what if you get out and you saw that the driver was using his mobile phone? Are you gonna get angry,
Well, likely yes.
right?
But okay, I don't want to be idealistic here, but
Yeah.
I'm also happy, and I'm actually okay. I can get out of the car and hopefully the guy in front of me,
Yeah.
whoever is driving, is also okay.
Yeah, this is why I love about you. You are the epitome of positivity. Now, I wanted to contrast that, of course, if you got out of the car and you realized the driver in front had to brake suddenly to avoid hitting an old woman trying to cross the street.
Okay, I don't know as well. I mean,
It's
obviously,
different, right?
there will be an element of disappointment, knowing that someone was careless, and you know, you feel disappointed. Maybe it will turn to anger, frustration, but also that sometimes you see these are also signs for us to also reflect and say, actually, I'm glad nothing really happened at the end of the day.
Good.
You know.
So you're right. So basically, my point is in scenario number one, you're much more likely to feel angry because you felt that person was careless, and therefore you now have a damaged car, your whole day is ruined, you got to send it to the workshop, etc. But if you had seen that the context of that person breaking was actually to save the life of the old woman, okay, you know what? There's much less of a perception of injustice to you, right?
Okay.
You're not going to be as angry. Okay? But injustice, or the perception of injustice and anger, can be one of two ways. You can be angry because you feel you were hurt, you were cheated on, you know, you were wrong, right? But you can also be equally angry when someone else, especially someone that you care for, was wrong, right? So for example, right, like in those two scenarios, if you went back and told your wife about what happened, you caught in an accident, in scenario one, she's going to be much more upset about the driver than she would be in scenario two, right? So she can also feel angry even though she was not involved in the accident, right? So the thing about how do we harness and channel anger as that first raw emotion to take the first step is, here's my contention, is to feel more angry about your current state, your current life, right? But oftentimes that's not enough. What I find crucial, that missing link that many people on the internet do not talk about, right, is to take that first step. It is when you can channel that anger because you felt someone that you cared for has been wronged. Okay? And it's so strong that it compels you, for example, to go from, I know I need to exercise because it's going to make me healthy, but I'm really upset that at my lack of health, I'm not going to be around to take care of my aging parents. I'm not going to be around. My kids depend on me, right? And in that sense, if you can channel that anger, that if you're not around, if you're not healthy to take care of others, it's going to propel you to take that first step, right?
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but maybe from the perspectives of emotions and feelings, whatever that emotion may be, frustration, sadness, anger, even happiness, try to maybe identify what that is in you that you know personally will spur you to make that change. And all of this actually is very personal. You know, for example, when I coach, I do a lot of reflections with my coachees and try to find those trigger point of emotions, happy, sad, whatever, that will help them reflect and want to do something different or even learn from that experience before. So I think we're kind of like agreeing, but just that the angle you're coming from is slightly different.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I love the point on learning, right? But I want to add an addition dimension to it.
Okay.
It is learning to embrace the suck. Okay. Learning to embrace the uncomfortable doing something that you do not like. And this is why I need anger, okay? Because oftentimes what holds us back, because the reality is if you love to run and exercise, you're not going to have a problem waking up in the morning, right? But the reality for most people is they're like, you want me to get up and put on my running shoes and go to the gym. Don't like, right? How do you embrace it? So here's an interesting scientific fact.
You and your scientific
I
facts,
love, you
Azran.
know me.
This is the problem with me. I don't have all those scientific bases.
But this is why I think it's very useful for the audience to kind of learn different perspectives,
Okay.
right? Because I've been trying to really understand, right, what holds people back,
Mhm.
despite the fact,
Mhm.
they know what is good or what is not good for them, right?
All right.
I'm sure everyone here will know. Look, if you have nasi lemak for breakfast every single day, that's probably not a good thing.
Oh.
You know, right? But it still doesn't stop most people from
having nasi
or,
lemak.
or even let's say if you ask most smokers,
Okay.
do you think smoking is healthy for you or not? Everyone knows, right? But why do you still do? What do you think? So despite knowledge, so basically, number one contention: knowledge by itself is not sufficient.
Mm.
So simply knowing the goals, the action steps, the logic
Mhm.
is not enough, right?
Okay.
Um, so this is part of the brain.
Yeah.
It's
Here we go.
called,
Here we go with all the scientific
I know, right?
statistics.
It is the anterior
Interior.
mid-singular cortex,
Okay.
AMCC.
Okay.
Okay.
AMCC.
And it's this little part, it's in the middle region, kind of right behind your your main prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
And we now are starting to understand its role in enabling us to do what we initially do not like. Right? So again, my point is if you like and you're happy doing something, no problem. But oftentimes, for example, even in business, right, what holds most companies back is not that they don't know they need to do something different. It is just it's uncomfortable. They don't like it doing something new. That's why
Yeah.
when I talk about annual performance appraisals,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
No one. I challenge you to name one person who finds joy in that process. They don't, right?
Only the one who gets the big bonus at
Right?
the end.
And as much as that sucks, the idea of foregoing it
Okay.
is even more scary
Oh,
because they're like, what if this? What if this? So many things could go wrong, right? That they are kind of paralyzed by inertia to do the same thing day in and day out, year in, year out. It's like a ritual. Even though you don't like it, you still do it, and you know
Yeah.
it's not effective, right?
No, I know, Azran. I
Right.
mean, the subject of annual performance appraisals. I mean, even recently we spoke about it on another
Yes.
podcast platform.
Your podcast.
My
Cuba
podcast,
Cerita.
Cuba Cerita,
Yes.
So I had a lot of feedback and
Yes.
comments from many of those who watched that, and they said, no, we don't agree with Azran. We need to have we need to have annual performance appraisals. But yeah, they don't actually work. So it's like
Because the reality is they're really not comfortable with, well, what was the alternative, right?
Yeah.
And when you're
Or
not sure about
what
what's
is the alternative?
right?
Yeah.
Right? Or even banks, insurance companies, right?
Mm,
If you're used to, for example, having your own IT systems that they zealously guard and protect, right?
Mm,
And the idea of relinquishing that control to move to the cloud is
mm,
awfully scary,
yeah.
right? Like many
Yeah.
boards are concerned, well, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong, right?
Sounds like
And so the unknown holds us back,
Mm,
right? So to come back to the anterior mid-singular cortex,
okay.
this is very interesting because it actually behaves like a muscle.
All right.
The more you use it, the bigger it becomes.
Oh.
So an unhealthy person has a relative to the brain size, a much tiny size of the AMCC versus say an endurance athlete who embraces the suck, right? Because by the way, endurance events is not fun. It's a lot of pain, right?
Mhm.
Trying to run an Ironman triathlon for 12
Mhm.
hours, that's a
Mhm.
lot of pain.
Mhm.
But there's a part of the brain that you train and harness to absorb or manage that pain, to not let that pain hold you back.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting muscle. So in a way, the more you train yourself to do something that you don't like, the more that muscle grows. The more you avoid what you don't like, it shrivels, and
I
therefore your
see.
ability to do something that is uncomfortable is weak,
I see.
right? And this is also interesting from a business context, right? Like you often find, and I'm sure I am overgeneralizing, right? But for example, board members typically might have a lot of people with audit or legal backgrounds, right?
Mm.
And that's a profession, if you think
Mhm.
about it, right? That's trained to avoid failure, right?
Avoid mishaps. Yeah.
Avoid mistakes, mishaps, rather than what could be new,
Mm.
exciting.
Mm.
They're more
Mm.
cautious about. It's
Mm.
called kind of loss aversion.
Mm.
It's a
Mm.
mindset or even a bias, right? I'm more
Mm.
concerned about losing what we have
Mm.
than gaining something that
Mm.
may or may not happen, right?
Mm.
Um, and when you're trained like that, right, you're actually not trained. You've had your entire career built not looking for something new.
Mm.
You're trained to avoid losing what you already have,
Mm.
right? And so it's hard for them to imagine a world where, oh, let's do this and this, even if it doesn't go wrong, right? Because you're conditioned that way. And it's the same part of the brain
Mm.
that holds a lot of people back, despite knowing cigarettes are not healthy, nasi lemak every day is not healthy, but I still do it because the part of the brain that's willing to try something different has not been developed.
Mm.
See,
Okay.
this is an interesting
Yeah.
thing,
I
right?
mean, I think it's very interesting,
Mm.
and thanks for sharing that, Azran. But maybe bringing us
Mm.
back to the topic of
Yes,
today,
yes, yeah.
where we've got an audience of millions of you out there, and I can see there are questions already coming. Let's bring it
Sure.
back to what is it that we can do today as a person, taking advantage of the beginning of the year where we are looking forward to a good year ahead and maybe even thinking about our careers. And can I just share with
Mhm.
you a thought,
Oh, yeah.
that I've always prescribed to in audiences that I address? I refer to it as the 1,000 day itch, if I may.
Mm.
Okay.
I love
So
this.
the reason why I refer to the 1,000 day itch is actually something that I too personally have been embracing my entire life, actually, most of my career. And the reason why I refer to 1,000 days is because equivalent to say 3 years.
Mhm.
Every 3 years or so, you're bound to experience some change in your life.
Mm. Okay.
If you think about it, when
Mm.
you're back in school, every 3 years, you're bound to 2, 3 years, you're bound to go through a major exam. When you go, then you go through your school years, you go to uni, and uni is 3, 4 years, and then after that, you go into your career, even marriage, buying your first car. All this happens in cycles.
Yep.
Um, as well as well, put it this way, even economic cycles
Mm.
do happen to happen in every certain or so number of
Yes.
years. Yeah.
Correct.
So my point is this: at this particular point of the year, maybe
Mhm.
this is a good time for you to plan, but not just plan. Prepare your thoughts about what do I need to do
Mm.
to get to where I want to go to
Mm.
next. So let's just say you and your career,
Mm.
and you have been in the same role roughly, for a certain number of years, for 2, 3 years, for example. You're kind of like asking yourself, when am I going to get the next opportunity?
Okay.
For promotion, for new roles, or whatever. But it's not so much as when, how do I prepare myself to be ready for that next opportunity?
Okay.
So I've got a few tips which
Mm.
I sort of like felt if I were to reflect on my career,
Mm.
it was certain things that fell into
Mm.
place. So for one, what is it that I can do in terms of getting further types of qualifications or
Mm.
experiences different from what I'm currently doing
Mm.
that will help prepare me for a future
Mm.
role, whatever that role may be. Yeah. The second thing is that, sometimes we always think that people will notice us based on the work only that we do.
Mm.
So if you're in a large corporation, for example, you need to start doing things outside your normal scope of
Mm.
responsibility because you need to be seen and you need to be heard.
Mm.
Yeah? And I like to keep things simple. So I only have one more key
Okay.
tip for today for all
Okay.
of you is you need to be seen and you need to be heard.
Mm.
So for example,
Mm.
you may think that you're doing a great job, you're delivering your reports on time, you are friendly with your boss, but are you upping your skills? For example, in terms of how you articulate your thoughts, how you make presentations, how you engage. And you can see that today, for example, if you go to like TED Talks,
Mm.
there are a lot of great examples of how technical based professionals become better at articulating
Mm.
articulating their thoughts and delivering. So these are just three areas I would really encourage all of you to think about. And don't be afraid of being ambitious.
Okay.
Because if you're not ambitious, how can you possibly be helping the company to grow with ambition? So again, that's just my
So
my
I don't disagree with that.
Great,
I
thank
think
you.
it's important. It is necessary, but insufficient.
Insufficient still. Okay.
Insufficient still.
Because you don't
No,
need the front
because I want to marry both
Okay,
perspectives, right? So
okay.
I think all of that is great
Okay.
if you already have the desire to
Okay.
to get outside of your current state.
Okay.
So where do I go, right? Oh, I need to think 3 years in. I need to plan. I love your example of don't just think if I do good job, my bosses should automatically recognize me. I need to actually go out and sell myself, right? Not just
Exactly.
learn more credentials. I have to earn, right, the attention of my bosses. It's not an entitlement,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Just like any company, you are not entitled to your customers buying your product. You got to go out and market yourselves. And many people don't do that at the workplace because it is uncomfortable. You know, there are some people who love to just schmooze the boss and hey boss, let's go out for a drink, you know, and oversell themselves.
It's not just that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got crazy.
But there are a lot of people who don't, their careers are held back because they're uncomfortable talking about the achievements and accomplishments. Okay. So I want to come back to that discomfort. Okay.
Okay.
So to tie back in, especially to the power of why, which is the theme today, right? Is to me, all of what you said is necessary, but it is like step 2 to 100. I'm talking about from 0 to 1. Okay, that 0 to 1, my contention, because I want to add something that I think many people might have not talked about, is anger. Okay, anger at, damn it, I'm not being recognized by my bosses. Damn it, at this stage, I'm not going anywhere in my career. People don't, that feeling of dissatisfaction. Now, anger by itself is not enough, right? The power of why and the ability to engage that anterior mid singular cortex is to not just feel like you are the one that's being unjustly treated, meaning my bosses are bypassing me because they don't know about what I do. But when I can focus on channeling that anger, that it affects the people I care about. You see, many people, when we see ourselves as the victim, that victim mindset, we just kind of like, well, I'm just the victim and the world is unfair, right? But when you can define the anger at someone you care about, like, my kids are being deprived of better opportunities because my bosses, like when you can channel that, right? It forces you to, I am going to now take that first step to have that first conversation with my boss, to at least tell my boss, look, I think you're kind of overlooking all of my things, right? Once you get that, your anterior mid singular cortex is growing, right? Then the next step is, okay, I now need to learn new skills, right? And that's uncomfortable, but you're now building that momentum. I now need to think about that 1,000 each. All great things, man. But it's that first step, 0 to 1, step, right? It's almost, I feel a lot of people, all these models talk about 2 to 100.
Okay.
Right? But 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 is the one that I think holds people back. Yeah. Like this inertia.
I think, I mean, ultimately it is creating the why. Why do I need to do it?
Right.
Let alone the how. But it says so. And also, I think what I'm hearing from you is that if you are convinced with this strong why, however it spurts, it's arisen, hopefully it will continue to give you the impetus to change. Because as you say, I mean, there are many people out there who said, oh, economy is down, the B14 is growing, our salaries are low and blah, blah. I'm not saying those are real, but what are you doing about it, about yourself?
Correct.
So I think what we are maybe speaking the same thing.
And my point is, when you're only focused on you as the victim, I feel for many of us, we're being drawn by the sadness of the past or the anxiety or fear of the future, right? And like you either long for the good old days,
Mm.
right? Or you're anxious about, oh, you know what? How are we ever going to afford all these things? Because
Mm.
cost of living is what you're so worried.
Mm.
It in a way freezes you in state of inaction,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
both the fear and the sadness can be overwhelming.
Mhm.
So my contention and hopefully as a new thought for today is, how do I turn that sadness and fear into anger at the present state,
Mm.
and specifically anger that the loved ones that I care about
Mm.
are going to be disadvantaged because of it, that I'm willing to take that first uncomfortable step
Mm.
for that first action, right? You all
Mhm.
talked about your action from that first, I'm going to bite-sized stuff to the
Mm.
1,000 years to
Mhm.
annual plans. Oh, great stuff. Not saying it's not right.
1,000
Tapi
days.
selalu, I feel many people miss out
Yeah.
on this one first 0 to 1.
Okay. Taking that leap
Mm.
and sustaining that effort.
Mm.
Right. Yeah. Are we good? Um. Any questions? Are we at the point where we should maybe
Okay, so
see what any
let me.
questions?
I'm going to ask one question from Rin, right? So
Ah.
Rin has asked, how do we overcome the feeling that colleagues may try to sabotage us or envy our performance? So this is a very good coaching question.
Okay. Wow. Um. First of all, to overcome that feeling, Rin, um, I think you really need to maybe ask yourself, is it a genuine feeling?
Mm.
So maybe reflect on it. And these are genuine feelings, but sometimes you may just say, first of all, what are things that have demonstrated to me that I feel that my colleagues or my friends are not happy with me as a person? Okay, so whether they sabotage or envy, that's not what. Reflect on yourself first, and maybe there may be examples where you may have, said something in a meeting or acted a certain way in a function that you kind of like felt maybe people were not looking at you in a nice way. So with that, you can then say, well, maybe if I were to do it again, I would maybe do it in another way. So, for example, I'll give another example. You said something maybe at a meeting which appeared to be maybe overwhelming or even maybe to the point of making others feel comfortable. How would you maybe revisit those sort of situations again in future? I mean, maybe, for example, is rather than say something out at the meeting, bring it outside the meeting and make your thoughts known. So you still sincerely with intent want to get your message across, but how do you go about doing it? Yeah. So again, I think there's a lot of reflection first of all before trying to change other people's perception of you, and your we're still even your own feeling that people are not comfortable with you.
So that's a very good point,
Mm.
Azman, about validating
Mm.
whether these beliefs that we have,
Mm.
are they truly true or not,
Mm.
right? Like,
Mm.
are they really sabotaging me? Because
Mm.
we tend to remember that feeling of fear,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
That it's causing to me. So, uh, how would someone validate that, right? Like,
Mm.
what action can she take
Mhm.
to get other perspectives to help her interpret her situation?
Yeah. Good question,
Mm,
Azran. I have a thought, for
mm,
example, I mean, referring to Rain again or
mm,
others out there. Um, how about validating it through the opinion of others?
mm,
You can even there may be someone else, and you know what? I kind of like feel people are avoiding me,
mm,
or I don't get invited out to having lunches with friends
mm,
as often as I used to. Is there something that I said or the way that I
mm,
acted that
mm.
maybe made people feel awkward with me? So validate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually, maybe one resource
Mhm.
is you can actually chat with Coach Azman on the Naluri app,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Because when we have
Sure.
to explain our situation to someone,
Mm.
it helps clarify the often messy
Mm.
emotions
Mm.
that are all over our
Mm.
minds, right?
Mm.
But because I have to explain it to someone,
Mm.
help me understand this. Here are the facts, right? I'm sure you as a coach will then ask the
Mm.
clarifying
Mm.
questions.
Mm.
Have you thought about this or that, right?
Mm.
And that kind of might clarify.
Yeah.
That's an excellent
Yeah.
point.
Happy to.
So we've got another question
Great.
from Wilson, which is the why in well-being, how to find our purpose. So I'm going to start. Obviously. So my take on it is, you don't find purpose sitting here pontificating, reflecting, and somehow my purpose is gonna dawn on me, right? That's not how that journey comes, right? To me, um, so number one, it is, like I'm as in this ties to the business strategy concept. Is I'm not a fan of one singular strategy or one subset. These are our 10 priority initiatives that we're going to do. I'm a big believer in learning through experimentation. Just like many startup founders come to me with all kinds of business plans, and they're like, "Hush, hush, don't tell anyone. Sign NDA. This is like a really cool idea." Like I feel, what? No idea is worth the paper it's written on, because what differentiates great businesses from it's not the idea, but it's your ability to execute. Just like finding the purpose, there's no one powerful purpose, but it's your ability to execute, right? And so what I would advocate to companies is don't pick 10 priority initiatives. Have you done 100 experiments, right? That in 3 months, low cost initial experiments, what are we going to learn? That this works, let's do more of that. This doesn't work, let's kill, right? Because at that planning stage, you have no idea which of those initiatives will truly blossom as you plan, as your hockey stick projections everybody writes in business plans, right? So you need to learn. So just like what we would tell businesses, you need to have actually more experiments than you're comfortable with, and be comfortable killing projects early on. So for Wilson, right, to me, it's like, okay, you know what? My challenge to you, let's say take 2025, do one crazy thing every week. So you do at least 50 things, 50 different things, right? Very quickly, you're going to learn, no, don't like it. Which ones you like, you double down. Which ones you don't like, you don't. So you need to kind of discover through experimentation, and this may be my bias as a doer, rather than reflecting and planning and thinking you can define your own purpose of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I always feel, Wilson and all of you, that, when you find that purpose, it will make you feel happy about whatever you're doing. So try to always find that point of satisfaction and happiness that will strengthen whatever purpose that you are seeking to find.
Cool. So we got another question from Bob, I think, right?
Okay, Bob, yeah.
How do you find the time to do experiments outside of your current roles in life? As someone who's a father in a single income family, it always feels like I don't have choices. That's a really real question, right?
Real question.
Yeah.
Maybe I can
Sure,
offer
yeah,
an
yeah.
idea. Bob, thank you so much, Bob, for asking that question. It's very real. Um, sometimes, Bob, we may get too hung up on trying to achieve something too big. When I say big, for example, yes, it may take up your time, it may cost you money, and you're not even sure whether or not it's going to work. And yet, deep down inside, something needs to change. So how about this, Bob? Why not try to do something that's manageable? Manageable with your time. Hopefully it's not going to cost you money. In a way, sometimes, Bob, if I can use an analogy, it's like picking up a new hobby. You'd like to create some variety in life. You maybe like to pick up a new hobby. But don't start by browsing the internet, how much does it cost, and the extremes of what you're going to achieve. Maybe take small bites, but make it a point to change.
But
make
not
it a point.
TikTok bites.
No, I'm not TikTok bites. I mean, okay, worthy bites, and something that you'll feel you see an outcome which will spur you to do more.
So, I'm going to tie back to what Azman talked about earlier when he says, look, I want to learn more about my faith. And so I'm doing small little things, right? So in a way, to me, like I do that a lot. How I do it is I time block.
Okay.
I actually put a half hour on my calendar. In my case, there's Saturdays at 5, right? And it may be only half an hour. So for example, Bob says, it feels like I don't have choices. And this sometimes we feel we're trapped in our existing job or careers, right? And you always feel trapped because you don't know what the alternative is. But what if you just said half an hour, no matter how busy you are as a head of a single income family, half an hour. And that's just okay. This week, Saturday at 5, I'm going to update my LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
Next week, I'm going to connect with 3 people on LinkedIn. Next week, I'm just doing one small thing so that my goal is by the end of the year, I'm going to have at least one job offer. Not that I want to change, but at least a job offer forces you to make a decision. Wow, is this better that I move? Or if I stay, I'm going to be much more committed
Mhm.
because I've looked at my options and I'm
Mhm.
going to commit to this company for another 2 to 3 years, right? So small things, time blocking makes sense. But most people, because you don't allocate that time, you actually never do, and
Mhm.
you're constantly in this loop of feeling that sense of
Yes.
helplessness, right?
Yes.
And to tie back to what I said, in order for you to get started to actually do that, be angry.
Be angry
Be
or
angry at, like why
yeah,
this is holding my family back, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So, damn it, I want to block half an hour every Saturday.
Yep. And do it.
Yep. Oh, cool. Fantastic. We've got another question that I think might be very useful for you from Ria. How do you manage and lead a team where the members are nominated to be part of this team for additional workload outside of our core work responsibilities?
Wow. Wow.
Right? And I'm going to tie this with a question from Nick Mohammed Adin,
Moment.
who says, as a leader, how do we instruct people in a way that does not look like we instruct them? I think they're related, and I think we can address both questions
Okay.
together.
Okay. So I guess Ria, it may be a situation where it's more of voluntary. Everyone is you're trying to do something outside your main core scope. Um, Whenever I'm working, for example, with a team that I don't feel are as united as
Mm.
they should be,
Mm.
I always find points that will connect them.
Mm.
So that, and I'm not trying to be idealistic here, this is human nature, yeah? It's like working with friends. So if in your team of these people who are nominated outside the additional workload, find points of connection, common interests, things which will make these team members feel that they want to be there, even though it's actually work. It's like
Yeah.
creating fun in a
Yeah.
way.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to tie that because,
Mm.
you and I are from kind of an older generation,
Okay.
and we oftentimes have to run teams that are, this new Gen Z,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
and that can create
Yeah.
friction, right? Because
Yeah.
our generation,
Yeah.
when we're told to do something, we just do it,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
this is the question. This is a generation that goes, well, why should I?
Yeah.
Right? You want
Yeah.
me to do more? It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. So one thing that I want to do is to talk to these members who are now part of my team, and to Nick's question about without necessarily instructing them,
Mm-hmm.
is like find out what are they really passionate about in life, right?
Yes.
For example, maybe it is I genuinely want to be a social media influencer or a content creator, an e-commerce entrepreneur. Fantastic. You know what?
Mm.
But what do you think you have to do or skills you need to have in order for you to truly succeed, to be that one in a million content creator, social media influencer, e-commerce entrepreneur who succeeds? Because what you don't see on TikTok are the 999,000 people that fail, right? So let's talk about what do you think will need. What do you think are skills that a young person trying to become that entrepreneur influencer will need in order to succeed? If I were to just focus on the skills, what do you think those skills are?
Oh, that's a big question still. Um, I think you need to be a great listener.
Okay, what else?
Well, let me expand on that. When I say great listener, meaning that you need to have the skill to take in ideas which you didn't generate yourself. But I believe that with that skill, you can also be thrilled. Say, wow, I didn't see that. That's how I
That's a very important high order skill. But even at a basic level, you need to know how to get things done. You need organizational skills. You need analytical skills, right?
Yeah,
You need to know
yeah,
your numbers.
yeah,
You need
yeah.
to have communication skills,
Yeah,
right? How do you
yeah.
have to articulate your idea
Yeah.
for you to build your listenership?
Yeah.
Guess what? My project that I want you to be involved with
Mm-hmm.
can help you gain those skills and sharpen those skills.
Okay.
I'm here to mentor you
Okay.
on analytical skills, communication skills, organizational, operational skills,
Mm.
right? And so when people can make that connection, you talk about the connection,
Mm-hmm.
but not just connection between the two of us. And I think
Mhm.
that is important.
Yep.
But if I can connect you to what you're excited about beyond this job to the work that I need you to do,
Mhm.
I think we can actually create a lot more momentum, right? And so for
Yeah.
Nick, rather than just instructing,
Mm.
help connect them
Yeah.
to their purpose,
Yeah.
right? So to Wilson's point, or
Yeah.
and I think that can also can help people feel like I want to do more than just my
Yeah.
job scope.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to share, even my own personal experience. I met Azran maybe like 7, 8 years ago for the first time. And I think the one thing that made me interested to know Azran more actually was because I like new things. I just love the curiosity.
I'm
of new
I'm
things.
deflating for you.
Maybe, but because in those days when I first met Azran, and Azran was just starting up Naluri, and I was quite fascinated by this idea, which I thought was really new.
Mhm.
So I just like to meet new people, do new things, not necessarily be a master at it, but just purely out of curiosity. So maybe find the curiosity in your team that will help connect them to to create that bond.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm going to call up Wilson saying to Nick, why not be more authentic to connect? Well done, well said.
Okay.
But let's go on to Nick's other question.
Okay.
Feeling, especially unhappiness, sadness, anger that's happening inside our inner cells or heart, somehow they show in our face.
Oh.
and so my question is, how do we compose or control this feeling to not obviously be seen as not happy to the other person? Wow,
this is a great question.
This is a great question.
I actually had a coachee recently.
Right?
I better not mention the gender.
Yeah. Okay.
But this person, asked me, how can I create this poker face? So when the question was asked, I guess, so what do you mean by poker face? Well, people read me too easily. So I said to this person that you maybe need to pause and listen first before reacting. Because when you react, automatically your emotions are going to drive how you look. So I'm going to share this with you if you want to, Nick.
Yeah.
I call it the 7-second rule. So 7-second rule means that whenever anyone is saying something to you, force yourself to pause for at least 7 seconds. And in the 7 seconds, you are literally counting inner to yourself, looking at the person, taking in what's being said, including not just listening, but also feeling the emotions before you respond.
So here's a little bit more scientific salt and pepper.
All right.
It is better to count backwards than forwards.
Oh, okay. So 7,
so
6.
7, 6,
Okay.
5, 4,
right.
3, 2, 1. It composes you more than 1 to 7.
Yeah.
Because there is 1 is a clear, right? Point to act.
All right.
Now, if I just want to add one thing, because I think that's really powerful, what you just said, is sometimes you need more than 7 seconds. So here's what I would do. Tell me more.
Okay.
Right? When someone's either yelling at you or they're upset at you, that's causing you to boil in anger, how do we move from reacting impulsively to responding intentionally? 7 seconds. Tell me more. Right? Because the more information you get, the better you're able to process. You move from that kind of subconscious gut instinct limbic system to the prefrontal cortex, the logical side, right? So the more information, the better. So tell me more.
Tell me more. But I think that's great. Tell me more. But the point of the matter here, Nick, is that you really want to be in control of the emotions. And I want to also add one more thing. Take satisfaction of trying to do this not just at work, but also at home, with your wife, with your children, with whoever. You know how it is. Whenever someone says something to us, automatically we are ready to respond, even before they've actually even finished what they have to say. So, but take the satisfaction of being able to control that, and even record how many times you're able to do it in a day, and you will see people will be more receptive of you and appreciate more your reactions.
Wow. Okay. And Bob just articulated something that I've always talked about, which is you cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond.
Yeah.
Well done, Bob.
Well done, Bob. Thank you. Good words.
So there's a follow-up question, I think. What if the person tell me more, but it confuses what he or she wants?
Okay. Well, I guess tell me more is another way of pausing, giving the person a chance to speak. There's another good point also, Azman, I'd like to share. You know how it is. Sometimes when we are leading teams, we know the answer, but we really want it to come from them. So force yourself to ask the question. What's your advice? What's your view? so that oh, by the way, I even like this also now. Sometimes you want to tell your boss something,
Mm.
and it's eating up into you, but you can't tell your boss. So what you can maybe do is frame it in another way. Say, sir, what's your advice if you were in this situation?
Mm.
Or what is it that I am doing well? What is it that maybe I'm not doing as well? So in a way, you are throwing it back as a question rather than trying to even tell your boss what maybe that they don't see. You know.
Yeah. So look, I think this ties back to what we call active listening.
Active listening.
Right? There's three levels.
Mm,
Usually, level one is just listening to respond, right? Or you
mm,
tell me something, I'm
mm,
going to react back to you. The second order, which is listening to understand, have I understood you correctly?
mhm.
But the third most powerful level is listening to connect.
Yes.
What do we have in common? Even if
Yeah.
I may disagree with what you're telling me, do we have the common goal or understanding, right? So sometimes it may not be sufficient to just say, tell me more.
Mm,
It may require you to paraphrase what your boss or your colleague has just told you.
mm,
So you think I was not good or I screwed up this part,
mm,
right? Did I
mm,
understand you correctly?
mm,
Seeking understanding doesn't mean you agree with them,
mhm.
but it helps to build that connection, that understanding that you can then use it as a platform going forward. So don't let's force to react to give a counter argument,
Yeah.
but just use that time to reflect back and then say, tell me more. Is this what you mean, right? So in summary, do I hear you that this is what you want, right? I think it goes a long way. So look, I think we're kind of we only have a last few minutes,
Mhm.
and I'm glad Zalia brought up the 90-10 rule, but I think it's useful to recap our discussion, right?
Mhm.
Because some people might have joined in midway.
Mhm.
So as we think about the power of why, whether in
Mhm.
well-being, our lives, or work,
Mhm.
we share different perspectives, but I think we kind of converge,
Yeah.
right? Like 0 to 1 with Azran, 1 to 100 with Azman. Yeah.
I mean, the beauty about today's session is it is actually January. It's a time for reflection, strengthening conviction, and moving ahead. So take satisfaction that you have achieved a lot past year, but we're not resting on our laurels. We are here today to move forward. So what Azran and I shared are maybe, of course, Azran is very knowledgeable from the scientific perspective. I'm, been around for a long year in terms of meeting people and understanding different. But hopefully there are little tips, that you can take with you today, and put this into practice. Because if you go through a session like today, and it just becomes something that you just park in the back of your mind and say, well, okay, good stuff, good stuff. Thank you very much. But make it an impetus to try something new.
Mm.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
And for me, as I said, we are held back, first of all, by our emotions. We know what we need to do, but what holds us back is emotion. So number one, being aware of that, right? Being aware that it could be sadness of the past, it could be fear of the future. And what I would, want to add for today's discussion is the anger in the present, to define what are you so angry about in the status quo that compels you to take that first step. And usually it's the anger that the people I care about is being deprived or unjustly treated as a result of my circumstance, even if it may be my boss doesn't recognize me at work, right? How does it affect your kids or your parents or whomever that you care about, right? To take those first steps. And I think that's probably the most powerful why in our lives, right? And I think lastly, to take those first steps, right? So I'm a big advocate of just 30 minutes a week, schedule it,
Yep.
Whatever it is. So you
Yep.
build momentum
Yep.
rather than being always overwhelmed with thoughts. How are people judging me? How much people perceiving me? I'm the victim here, right? What do I need to do? And hopefully you're angry enough to schedule it on your calendar right after this. So don't let this go to waste.
Okay.
And with that, we're going to wrap up today's session. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you very much.
Azman.
Yeah,
Always a pleasure.
brilliant. We should do
And
this again.
yes, I look forward to catching you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.